All right, so I apologize to interrupt the exciting conversation, but we can get ready to start the meeting today. So as is usual for a new meeting of a new year, I get the privilege of opening the meeting. So welcome to the Drainage Board meeting of December 9th, 2021. I would like to welcome everyone in attendance today and to those watching online on Zoom and YouTube. Special welcome, though, to our two new members, Tim Wilcox and then Deputy Mayor O'Reilly. And our returning members, Councillor Ashmore, Councillor Vale, as well as Charlie Clark, Jim Oriotis, who is on Zoom today, and Mike Verbeek. My name is Joel Watts. I'm the Deputy Clerk and Recording Secretary for the Drainage Board. And according to the committee's terms of reference, at the first meeting of the Drainage Board for a year, the first order of business is to appoint a chairperson to conduct today's meeting and the future meetings for the next year. To be clear for everyone, the next year will be up until the end of the term of Council, which is November 14th, 2022. The role of the chairperson includes the responsibility to chair the meeting and ensure the meeting is conducted as listed on the agenda or by resolution if it's decided to move an item on the agenda. Ensuring meetings are conducted in accordance to the Drainage Act and to the city's procedural bylaw. Calling for pecuniary interest when it is listed on the agenda, and noting that it's up to the individual committee member to determine whether or not they have a pecuniary interest, and ensuring all members of the committee, visiting staff, and members of the public are treated with respect. So once the chairperson has been appointed today, they will conduct the appointment of the vice chair of the committee, and who will serve as the chairperson in absence of the chair. So now I will call upon the members of the committee 3 times for nominations for position of chair. So firstly, I call upon the members of the committee to put forward a nomination for the position of chair. Are there any nominations? Deputy Mayor O'Reilly.
I would nominate
on your microphone.
I'd nominate Andrew Vale, the past chair.
And Councillor Vale, do you consent to the nomination?
I do.
All right. I call upon the members of the committee a second time for nomination to the position of chair. I call upon the members of the committee a third and final time for the position of chair. Seeing no other members nominated for the position of the chair, I declare that Councillor Vale has been appointed chair by acclamation, the chair of the Drainage Board. So Councillor Vale, if you would like to come forward and take your seat in the chair, just bring your name tag as well so that we can put that on the desk so that members of the public can see your name. And then I've left you a script there for walking us through the nomination of the vice chair position.
Thank you, Joel. All right, so we'll move into nominations for vice chair for the Drainage Board. Firstly, I call upon the members of the committee to put forward a nomination for the position of vice chair. Anybody? We gotta have somebody, fellas.
You, Councillor Ashmore, do you want to be vice chair? I'll nominate Councillor Ashmore for vice chair.
Councillor Ashmore, do you accept?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, I call on the members of the committee a second time for a nomination for the position of vice chair. Oh, sorry. Did you have something, Jim?
No, I was just seconding the nomination.
Thank you. I call on the members of the committee a third and final time for the position of vice chair. Okay, I declare that Councillor Ashmore is appointed by acclamation as vice chair of the Drainage Board. The vice chair will assume the role of the chair in the absence of the chair. Okay, so we've got 1.1. Does somebody want to make that motion that the above appointed chairperson and vice chairperson retain their appointments until the end of term of council being November 14th, 2022? Charlie Clark, seconded by Mike Verbeek. Any discussion? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. All right, that brings us down to 2.1, an adoption of the agenda. Would somebody like to so move? Deputy Mayor O'Reilly, seconder. Charlie, all in favor? That motion carries. Thank you. Is there any declarations of pecuniary interest this evening?
Yes.
Jim, go ahead.
That's regarding the off-board municipal drain. I'm inside the catchment area, so that would sort of have a best interest for what we're discussing on that. So I'm going to sort of abstain talking about it. I'll listen, but I won't make any comments.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of pecuniary interest? Jim, can we just, you were a little broken up there when you were speaking. Can you just verify that your pecuniary interest is, you're in the catchment area of the ops drain?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, 2.3, adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. Okay, motion from Charlie Clark for approval. Seconder, Councillor Ashmore. Is there any discussion around those minutes? If not, calling the question, all in favor? That carries. Thank you. All right, that brings us to 2.3.1. Oh, no, sorry, we just did that. New business, 4.1, petition for drainage work by owners Michael Curtin. And a memo from Mike Farquhar. Do you want to take it from here, Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Clerk's Department on December 2nd received a prescribed form under the Drainage Act for a petition for drainage at 168 Halls Road. As you can see up on the screen here, Joel has our GIS viewer up, and in green is the regulated layer, or the KRCA's regulated mapping layer for a water course. And you'll see from basically it's the back 40 acres, the back of the farm. So the farm also has road frontage on Clarny Bay Road, which the water course runs parallel with. So Mr. Curtin, over the last couple of years, has been in contact with the drainage superintendent, and at that time he tried to seek out a mutual agreement with the neighbors to the south, being 140 as well as 255, I believe there. Joel, I don't know if you can just maybe move the map up. Yeah, just to the north, move it up to the north, just, no, sorry, the other way. Yep, perfect. Just keep going, no, just, yeah, go the other way. Yeah. A little more. And then you'll see, as it comes through 140, 255, and then that water course then heads east to the road allowance, where it outlets and then goes into the road allowance and then into that wetland area. So what Mr. Curtin is petitioning for is, sorry, let's go back. He had sought out with his neighbors. One neighbor at 140 was in favor. However, he wasn't able to come to an agreement with 255 for a mutual agreement, which led to Mr. Curtin petitioning for a drain. So we are here under Section 8 of the Drainage Act to consider this petition. And if the board makes the recommendation, the petition would move forward to council. I would assume maybe on the probably likely the January 25th council meeting to be considered. At that time, what we usually do is look for quotes from different engineers to provide council for a costing, and then with a recommendation from the board, and then a potential appointment. Now, in this area, there's no existing municipal drains. Majority of the soil is fairly loamy, with rock being close to the surface. So the general area over the years has been farmed with cow-calf operations, but moving towards cash crop, hence the need for drainage.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Deputy Mayor O'Reilly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I didn't see it in the report. Are we talking all open drain, or is any of it closed, Mike?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, currently it is just an open water course. It's intermittent.
Yeah.
So it runs in the fall and springtime. And normally with the petition, once approved and reviewed, the engineer always looks at an open drain first, unless there's a request for a closed drain.
But there wasn't no initial request for a closed drain to start with.
Through you, no. There was no request for a closed drain.
Thank you.
Charlie?
Can you tell us who the neighboring properties are?
I'll defer that question to the clerk.
I would suggest not without their consent at this time, unless the petitioner was here and they wanted to explain. Since they're not here and neither are any of the opposing neighbors, I would leave that information to the city at this time. But that information will come forward certainly if an engineer's report was presented, because all of the affected landowners would be identified in the engineer's report as per the Drainage Act. But at this time, no.
Go ahead, Charlie. You look like you have a question.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it's just, you know, the question being is, if you know somebody that's in a, you're saying it's in a cow-calf operation, which I'm in myself, and we're actively involved, this is somebody that we know and we are connected with. We're putting ourselves, if we don't know who they are we not jeopardizing our own conflict of interest here?
No, because at this point, like a pecuniary interest, you have a monetary interest in some change or whatever. Being friends with somebody isn't isn't part of that or whatever, right? And at this stage, it's a petition. The decision before us, right, is whether the petition is valid, and if it is, it should be moved forward, and that has nothing to do with the individuals that are part of it. It's based on the validity of the petition. Any other questions of Mike on the report? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor O'Reilly.
No, I was just going to give you a recommendation. Is there a written recommendation specifically in there? Which page is that on? It's like I saw one recommendation, but that wasn't.
Item 4.1 on page 2 of the agenda.
Okay, is that where the recommendation is?
That's the staff recommendation, yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. I'll move that. I don't have to read it all out. Or does anybody want it read out, or you can read it out, Mr. Chair?
Sure. So we've got a motion from Deputy Mayor O'Reilly that the memorandum from Mike Farquhar, Acting Drainage Superintendent, Engineer, and Corporate Assets, December 9th, 2021, regarding the petition for drainage works by owners of Concession 3, Part Lot 8, Geographic Township of Fenland, being Michael Curtin, be received, that council proceed with the petition submitted by Michael Curtin for drainage works for Concession 3, Part Lot 8, Geographic Township of Fenland, to be known as the Curtin Municipal Drain, and instruct the city clerk to proceed with the notices required under Section 5 of the Drainage Act, that staff concurrently continue to pursue with the petitioner's options for a mutual drain agreement as per the city policy, and that pursuant to Section 8.1 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, Chapter D, 17, staff recommend to council a drainage engineer for the examination of the area requiring drainage and proceed with the requirements of the proposed Curtin drain, or proposed Curtin municipal drain. Is there a seconder for that motion? Mike Verbeek, any discussion? Councillor Ashmore?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you too, Mike. So how long do they have with the neighbors to come to a mutual drain agreement? Is there a certain time period that they have with their neighbors if they choose to do that path?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the member. Yes, so up to the point where the engineer's report is brought forward to council for adoption, anyone can sign on to that petition or remove their names. So between now and the period where council will receive the recommendation from this board, from this meeting, the petitioner can speak with the owner and try to work out a mutual agreement drain, or any time after that point of appointment of an engineer, if council chooses to appoint the engineer. However, there could be cost after that point.
Okay. By the looks of the map, it looks like there's quite a few adjacent landowners that would be involved, would they not? If they had a mutual agreement by looking at the waterway or the drain, the course of the drain, that there would be quite a few neighbors that would be involved if they did do a mutual agreement.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the member. So we have 3 immediate landowners and possibly a 4th to the north, including the municipality, the road authority. You could have potentially 5 people, 5 groups that would be signatures to the mutual agreement.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, calling the question, all in favor? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. All right, that brings us to 5.1, meeting to consider the Ops 4 municipal drain. And I believe at this point, this is where Jim's got his conflict of interest.
Yeah, so Jim, just because you've declared a conflict of interest, what we'll do on Zoom is we'll just move you into a waiting room and we'll bring you back when we're done.
Okay, thanks, Joel. So at this point, we've got a presentation of the reports from Mr. Michael Jarrett.
Hello, through the chair to the board, to the drainage board. The Ops 4 drain eastern branch was prepared under Section 78 of the Drainage Act. The scope of work includes preparing a new report to address the proposed and future Victoria Rail Trail culvert replacements complete with specifications. The existing conditions at this crossing, there's 3 culverts. The first culvert is a 1,200 by 1,200 or 4 foot by 4 foot concrete arch culvert's kind of triangular in shape. It's built by the CNR. It's 24 meters in length, and it was built in 1911 and is perched. The bottom of this culvert's in poor condition, and it's in need of replacement. So the bottom's actually punching up into the culvert, so it's at the end of its lifespan. Culvert 2 is an 1830 by 1,220 millimeters, so a 6 foot by 4 foot concrete box culvert. It's 20 meters in length, and the culvert was installed in 1912, and the inlet is perched. The culvert is failing and is in need of replacement. It has the same condition in the bottom, where the bottom of the pipe is actually pushing up and the outlet is wrecked. Culvert 3 is a 1930 by 1450 Cspa culvert. It's 19 meters in length. The culvert was installed in 1972 and is perched. The 1972 report identified the culvert as an 80-inch or 9'6" by 6.5 Cspa, so corrugated steel pipe arch, which is slightly larger than the culvert that was installed. So the culvert's a little bit smaller. I wouldn't say that it's negatively affecting flows in the area, but it did with the culvert. It might have had to do with the time when they were ordering the pipe, whether they can get the pipes back then, or I'm not sure why. It happens once in a while. The channel banks upstream and downstream of the culvert appear stable, and there's the amount of sediment in this ditch was minimal. So I believe that ditch was cleaned out probably, I don't know exactly, but within the last 5 years, or maybe 6 now, but it's flowing, and I'm not seeing a lot of sediment build up, but the culverts certainly need to be replaced. So the design of this was completed to maintain the water levels in this channel, and the design includes modifying the grade line to ensure that water doesn't pond immediately upstream of Culvert 2. Culvert 1 and Culvert 3 will remain perched and will serve as overflow culverts. With the 3 culverts there is enough flow that it's not going to negatively affect it. And by keeping 2 of them up, we can keep a low flow channel for approvals, for migration of fish and whatnot. There's been prepared an estimate of cost in the amount of $96,470. And the assessments, it was assessed out in accordance with a previous report on this drain. And that report prepared by Cspa had 100% of the cost of these culverts going to the property owner, which is now the city of Kawartha Lakes. The report includes a detailed maintenance schedule and construction specifications and a plan and profile. I'm available to answer any questions from the board or from the staff or from the public.
Thanks, Michael. Is there any questions on the report? Deputy Mayor Riley?
Thank you. Just a quick one to Michael. With the reporting the concrete culverts, do they replace them this day and age with concrete, or do they replace them with a different culvert?
Well, that depends on how big it is. These are big culverts, but if we can get a corrugated steel pipe in, we would certainly try to get it in because of getting the material into place up to Kawartha Lakes and in. A corrugated steel pipe is much more economical to put in. Of course, concrete will last longer, but with the corrugated and aluminized, we're hoping to get a lifespan that would be pretty good out of this. Concrete is very expensive when compared to corrugated steel. So there's already a corrugated steel there as well. Both these concrete culverts were put in by the CNR or CP, I'm not sure which rail line, but they're put in by the rail line, and they're always very durable and sturdy. They're quite large normally, and they're usually concrete. And at that time, they were concrete as well because they didn't have corrugated steel pipes.
Just to follow, do they do corrugated plastic at that size?
No. No. I don't believe they do. I do know that ADS has a new product out, and I think you can get a larger pipe. It's a triple-walled, double gasketed pipe, but it becomes cost prohibitive when you put in these plastic pipes when you get above About 5 years ago, 900 millimeters would have been the cutoff where we would say after 900, it was too expensive to put HDPE in or plastic. And then now we're sitting at around 1200 and I haven't put a 1500 in. They become exceptional. Like the money, the cost per lineal meter really jumps up between a 12 and a 1500.
Any further questions on the report? Mike, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add to Mike's report as well that the city has done a repair at that culvert with Parks and Rec, where we had to place a steel plate over a section of that concrete culvert that had failed, just to be able to keep the trail open, because there is, over that culvert, there is a city-owned trail.
Thanks for that, Mike. Any other further questions on the report? Okay, seeing none. At this point, this is the opportunity to add or withdraw signatures to the petition, and I believe there's nobody. So we'll move right down to, you've got a recommendation and 5.4. What is the committee's wishes?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Charlie Clark that the City of Kawartha Lakes Drainage Board recommend that Council adopt the Ops 4 Municipal Drain Section 78 report as prepared by M. Jarrett's Engineering and instruct the clerk to prepare the necessary bylaws that as the City of Kawartha Lakes is the sole assessed property for the Section 78 improvement of the Ops 4 Municipal Drain, Council deems no further court of revision proceedings are required, and that Council proceeds with the first, second, and third reading of a bylaw to adopt the report. Seconder for the motion, Deputy Mayor O'Reilly. Any discussion? Seeing none, calling the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Do you want to let Jim back in? All right, we're now at 6.1, 2021 maintenance work plan updates. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So the big one we have for this year is the Ops 1 cleanout. So this is a continuation of past work we've done there. So the limits are Colburn Street West to Dewdrop Inn Road. This one, we had a long wait on MTO for permitting, but the plan right now is to start that January 3rd, after the new year, and it's hard to say what the weather will give them. Other work was the Webster Drain. When they built that, there was a lot of erosion. So the contractor's been back. They've fixed all the erosion, and there's just really minor things remaining that they'll do in the spring. On the Miller Drain, there was a clean out last year, and they identified where the catch basin on Pleasant Point Road, the structure had failed. So we've replaced the catch basin structure. On the Ops 4 drain, we did some beaver trapping north of River Road. There's a rather substantial dam there. That was recently done. And then the property owner one of the property owners on Halter Road just requested the Ford crossing widened. So the engineer's report permits up to 40 foot wide. It's about half of that now. The hope was for that work to be done this year, but with the permitting with KRCA, it might be in the new year. So the Hancock East Drain, we had another large dam was found there. We removed, that was kind of behind the Cambrai Hall, just south of Cambrai. And then the last one that's still outstanding is on the Rogers Hancock Drain. There was the one outlet, it had a lot of erosion. So there was some work done, I think, last year. And then with the weather being nicer next week, there's a good chance that could get done there. So that's on the Webster property there. And that's most of the big notes for this past year.
Okay, thank you. Does committee have any questions on the 2021 update? Seeing none, do you want to move into the 22 work plan?
Sure. So for 2022, we haven't had a lot of requests yet. Some of the above is going to carry over a bit, but the big one, well, not even big, but on the Kime drain, there was a request for clean out. So this one's on White Rock Road in Salem area. And it'll be about half a kilometer of just drain clean out. So again, we're waiting for KRCA permit on that. And if we're lucky, we'll do it before the fisheries window, but it might be a summer project for next year. And to date, that's all the requests we've had for maintenance for next year.
Pretty light year at this point. Any other questions on those updates? Councillor Ashmore?
Through you, thank you. What sort of budget do we have for 2022 for a work plan for maintenance for the city? What sort of budget do we have to work with?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So the city carries a amount in its capital budget for new drains, and that amount then is for crossings or components of new drains assessed to the city. However, for maintenance components, it is we don't carry an operational budget to do specific maintenance cleanouts, as those costs are assessed out to the landowner. So we essentially carry those costs and then assess them out once completed.
Deputy Mayor O'Reilly?
Just to refresh my memory, Mike's been a while. Do you have a maintenance plan? Do you establish that, or is it a result of complaints? And secondly of all, have you had any trouble getting contractors to tender on these?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the member. So it's a kind of a mixture both between calls from landowners for reviews and requests for cleanouts, as well as we try to establish a proactive maintenance cleanout plan. Most of the east side or east drains, being mostly located in ops, have been cleaned out within a 10-year period, and that was a process started by the previous drainage superintendent that had retired. So we're trying to do a combination between proactive and then also reacting to requests. Through you, Mr. Chairman. No, so we tender out. So with the purchasing policy, a lot of our RFQs for requests for cleanouts tend to be under that $100,000. So so through the purchasing policy, we only request 3 to 4 vendors, and right now we haven't had any issues with getting quotes from vendors at all.
Any further questions? Okay. If there's no further questions, would somebody like to make a motion that the maintenance work plan and the proposed maintenance work plan be received? Councillor Ashmore, seconded by Mike Verbeck. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay, 6.3, ongoing petition drain updates. Mike?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. What I'll do, as we have Michael Garrett's here tonight, Michael Garrett's has been appointed as the engineer record for the DeRoche municipal drain, the Hugh Davidson municipal drain, as well as the Martin municipal drain. So what I'll do, I'll ask him to, in that order, to give a little update of where we're at with those petition drains. And then I'll speak to the Keckman Brown municipal drain and the update on the Waite municipal drain. Now, all these petition drains could eventually come forward this year for reports for consideration, and there will be a few of them potentially that will be, if approved, part of our overall work plan then for construction of new drains this year. But I'll hand it over to Mr. Garrettson.
Through the chair to the board. So the Droge drain, I actually had that drain done. And then right when I was just getting the permitting done on it, and a landowner downstream came forward and said he wanted it extended across his property because there was an existing tile there. So unfortunately, that came out at the end of the project instead of the beginning. So I went out, I'm going to say about 2 weeks ago, and I surveyed the downstream part between Alden Road and Little Britain Road. There's a wet area there behind the schools, and I'm going to reissue the report now. There was a drain in there from 1896, and the farmer, I think it was 1896, the late 1800s, and the farmer that farms that property actually had a copy of it. The farmer downstream managed to, or showed me where the tile was, so I verified the tile, and that will make getting my conservation approvals a lot easier, because there's an existing drain there that was farmed, and sorry, and then it kind of got taken over by the natural vegetation. It looks a lot like a wetland, but I wouldn't call it that. And now it's going to get reverted back. Certainly, at least in the downstream landowner's property, he's got a tile there. He wants it improved. He feels his tile can't handle all the water that's coming from the upstream with the proposed improvements. So it's going to take a bit longer. I have the survey done. I probably would need at least a couple weeks on it just to update it, just to get to it to update it. But once I get on it, I'll have it done relatively quickly. So it's close. It's just not there. I wish it would have been there. But sometimes it does happen on drains where we get someone downstream that comes forward, or for some reason it's just a little bit of a bump in it. But I'll get through it, and I'll get it out as quick as I can. For the Hugh Davison drain, that report is complete. I just need to date it and sign it, but we need to have a public meeting to consider the report. I have my permits. I did give the landowner a copy of the report probably 4 months ago. It's an enclosure, so the landowner's paying a significant amount of money. So I thought, you know what, I'll give him the report. He hasn't got back to me. So, and this landowner, if there was an issue, he would have got back to me. So I think that we're all good there. It was kind of in line with what he was expecting. I can't remember if I was a little bit bigger than what he wanted, but we do all ours based on calculations. And so the size is the size, but he certainly was okay with it when I talked to him on the phone. The Martin drain, I just received KRCA's comments this week, so they're good. A little bit, we're just upstream of Pigeon Lake, so they're a bit concerned. So we're gonna have a bit more mitigation just to make sure sediment doesn't migrate downstream. It's a very short ditch, so it doesn't matter. The drain is a bit difficult because there has been some road improvements there that have directed water into different areas. So I have talked to other drainage engineers, and that report is definitely done. I was waiting on the comments. So again, I mean, when it's done to the point, I just need to proofread it and get those final edits into it. I did meet with the landowner downstream to go over the report. Again, I sent the downstream landowner report as well, just because I knew she'd like to read it, and then she can get her comments back. And I was hoping that would streamline the report when I bring it to the board, so that I can address as many comments as I can. So I think I'm in pretty good shape there. It is a bit of a different drain, and some people aren't happy with that drain in that area, but I have to just work through that drain and get a report to you that I feel is appropriate, which is what I have. And I would expect that when you have your future drainage board meetings, I would be able to get it into the second one for sure, if not the first one. And the only reason I say that is with all this water, I have a lot of emergency culverts going out. And so I'm kind of booked up right up to Christmas, but I can get it in the new year. I'm literally I really don't have too much to do on either of those two drains. Like I said, the Hugh Davison drain is done and sitting there. It needs to be dated. And the Martin drain, it's about 2 days. I'd say 2 days away from being done. And that's printing and everything. So they're in a good shape. They just need to get to a meeting, but we haven't had a meeting yet. So the Hugh Davison has been sitting for almost a year, I bet. I bet you I was done that early in the spring. The landowner, he was kind of, he wanted to get it done earlier. And of course, with him picking up, 95 or 98% of the costs and going through the Drainage Act, everything gets slowed down. But he does understand there's a process that we have to go through. He is on a municipal drain. So obviously he would have loved to put it in himself, but you don't do that on municipal drains. So And he hasn't done that. He hasn't been like that, but I just know that, when you're picking up 98% of the cost, then his first comment is, I could have just done it myself for the other 2%. But it is a drain on a municipal drain, so it's an enclosure, and that's the way we do them. And that's the update for those 3 drains.
Thanks, Michael. Any questions of Michael on those 3 drain updates, Deputy Mayor O'Reilly?
Just a quick one on the Davidson drain. Are we talking about replacing the closed drain, or are we talking about what are they doing on the closed drain on Davidson property?
To the chair, to the board, we are taking an open drain and putting a closed pipe in. So when we do that under the act, when you enclose a drain, after it's an open drain, it's not grantable. Well, it's grantable up to 200 or 300 millimeters, but that doesn't play into this. Is a big catchment area. So the landowner has to pay I'd have to look at the report, but it's between 95 and 98% of the cost. And the reason there's a 5 or 2% difference is we just calculate how much maintenance savings there is upstream because it's a closed pipe, which requires less maintenance. So we kind of credit the people or we credit the landowner who's putting it in because he's making a drain that's not going to require as much maintenance. So I apologize, I don't have that number right in front of me, but it's somewhere in that, it's probably 95%. And then we're going to enclose that drain, and I brought it to the bush in conservation. KRCA asked me to bring it back a little bit right to the edge of the bush. They didn't want me to take any trees down the bush, and the landowner was fine with that. So I revised a sketch, and there's a clause in there because it does flow pretty good, and there's no buildup downstream, but I didn't want to, there's kind of a spot where it's a little bit slugged right at the outlet, so I didn't want to pigeonhole the landowner. So the report, and KRCA is quite aware of this, the report says if they need to go in the future to get that moving, if it were to ever plug up, they can do that through maintenance of the drain. I don't think it's going to do it, but I didn't want to leave the landowner with a problem with conservation downstream if he ever has to take an extra 20 feet of the drain out. So everything's ready to go on that one.
Okay, Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you. Just a question on the Martin drain. I've noticed that there's quite a bit of ditching that's been done on the just close to Pigeon Lake, so that it goes to the major culvert that goes underneath Pigeon Lake Road. Is that where the main drain is going to be? The main outlet will be for that Martin drain?
Yes, but it's upstream by a whole property, so it's quite high up. It's behind. Do you know where the Martins reside?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's 158 or 180 meters downstream of the Martins property line, and I could like that ditch there is probably another 400 or 500 meters, right? So they did clean it out. It needed a cleaning, definitely, and so that will help it out, but it's not part of the drain at the outlet. If I wanted to bring the drain there, I would have to take a drainage easement all the way across the downstream landowner's land, and in my opinion, they wouldn't want to give up that much land. Right now, we're only taking a small piece of their land at the upper end to get an outlet, and I didn't want to extend it down that far because there's a lot of grade there, and I thought it would it's their property there, and I know they value that ravine, so I didn't want to bring the drain. I brought it as quick as I could to an outlet, and I didn't bring it any further. That's what I have to do under the act, is bring it to the outlet. But so to answer your question, no, it doesn't go all the way there. Certainly the water goes there though. That is the outlet downstream.
Okay. Any further questions of Michael? Okay. Seeing none, do you want to do the 2 remaining, Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the members of the board. The McEachran Brown municipal drain, the report is complete. That drain is just west of CKL 46. So we'll be looking at bringing it forward for a meeting for consideration to the board in the new year at the next meeting, which we'll have to schedule, as well as the weight drain. This drain's been it started in 2018, so it's been going on for almost 4 years now. And one of the big considerations with that report is finalizing the crossing of the drain through Highway 35. So we met with the MTO today as well with Burnside. Burnside's the engineer on that project, and we've come to kind of terms of how the MTO will allow a crossing. It's just the detailed design of it will still have to be approved by the MTO, but we're hopefully looking forward in the new year to bring forward that report for consideration as well, and hopefully construction probably Q3, Q4 of 2022.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions of Mike? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to make a motion that the petition drain updates be received? Charlie, seconded by Mike Verbeek. Any further discussion? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. That brings us down to number 7. Would somebody like to make a motion for adjournment this evening? Charlie? Mike? All in favor? That carries. Thank you for your time, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.